So, shall we chant Namo Tassa as we have learned? So,
Remember what it is now.
Those of you who can't remember, you can just follow. I mean, you can just listen and we will chant.
Okay.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Right. So today I thought for the second day of our Buddhism for Beginners class, forum, we could touch on the topic of Kamma, the Kamma. And why I thought we would touch on Kamma is because in Buddhism, we have the practice of Buddhism, what we do, the way that we behave, the good things that we do, all of these things, the meditation, the mindfulness, all of these things are done sort of being aware of the fact that everything is sort of impermanent, right? That there is suffering, the potential for suffering, and then there is a fact of non-self, right? But even to think about these three characteristics, why we even bother to think about these three characteristics is because the Buddha speaks about this Kamma, or this energy, which is basically something that what goes around comes around, basically, right? What you put into the world, you reap again, or you become the person who is in the receiving end of what you put into the world, what you make other people experience. And the Buddha refers to all of this, right? When you say Kamma, right? When you say Kamma, the word Kamma, K-A-M-M-A, is a Pali word, as we all know, right? This Pali word is made out of the root Kam, that is K-A-M, right? Now, K-A-M, Kam, means action, right? It literally just means action, right? When we do something, right? When we do something, when we speak, when we look at a person, when we walk, when we talk, any sort of action, mental, verbal, or physical, right? Any sort of an action, we know the body, the mind must produce a certain amount of energy to be able to perform this action and to even think, right? Let us focus on the mind for now. Now we know, as we have experienced various emotions through our lifetime, we know that when we would take compassion, we feel different levels of compassion, right? When you would have a pet, a cat, a dog, or if you're looking after your pets, the compassion that you feel towards them is somewhat different from the compassion that you would feel towards one's children, right? The compassion that one would feel towards one's children is different to the compassion that we would feel towards our partners, our husbands, our wives, our friends. It's different, right? Now, in recognizing the fact that there are levels in compassion that arises in our mind, we should understand that what creates this difference in the power that goes into the compassion that I radiate depends on the energy that I am able to create at that specific moment in time, having that specific object as the main object or the receiver of my compassion, right? So the Buddha does recognize the fact that when one would look at a stranger, someone that one has never seen before, someone that we do not have any sort of connection to, the amount of compassion that will arise there could be really different to the compassion that we would have towards our children, right? Or towards our best friends. This is energy that is produced dependent on many factors, not only one, right? Now, you might have come across through your Dhamma study or through your meditative practice, and you learning, and of course, Mike having taught most of you all, right? You might have come across dependent origination, right? This word, we are not going to go, do not be afraid, we are not going to go into it today, right? Dependent origination. Dependent upon a certain factor or phenomena, another phenomena arises, right? But at one point we recognize within the law of dependent origination. So basically, if I am to say, because of A, B arises, right? Because of B, A sustains. Because of B and C, A sustains, right? In a way of mutual supporting, mutual support, right? These phenomena are able to arise dependent on other phenomena and are able to sustain themselves because of certain phenomena, right? Likewise, it is in Buddhism, the Buddha, in the teachings of like Dhamma, the higher teachings, which goes into metaphysics, right? The Buddha speaks about the fact that there is always more than one factor or supporting factors supporting one phenomena to be the way it is. For example, right, if you're having a really blissful day today, right, you're really happy today, it's been a good day, you woke up good, right, what could be the reason? Of course, the weather, right? The weather is one reason, right? The mood of your partner or your children, right? Who woke up together with you, right? If they were in a grumpy mood, your mood is affected, right? The mood of your cat or dog or any pets living at home, right? There are a couple of reasons, right? There are a couple of reasons that sort of influences your mood, how well your tea came out this morning, whether your tea had enough milk or whether it was the right temperature. All of these things, it is not just one factor. Recognizing this allows a person, now what is the importance of recognizing this? This allows a person to understand that we are organisms, phenomena, that we depend on other factors to sustain ourselves, right? And I think there is no better period than the current period that we live in to recognize this fact, right? Most of the people who are self-isolating alone are really feeling more grateful for human interaction, right? People are calling their friends, their family that they've not spoken to in years, in hope of some human interaction, right? We are feeling more grateful for the simple fortunes of life, like being able to go out for a jog whenever you want to, right? Being able to go out to the park, being able to go into town. We're feeling more grateful of this because those options have now been restricted to some way. This makes us understand that our happiness does not only depend on what we do, but it depends on all the factors that is around us, right? That is around us, that govern the areas and the environments that we live in, right? And I think there is no better time in the world to understand this fact than this current period that we live in at the current moment, right? So now, in regards to uh, the morality of a bhikkhu or a monk. Bhikkhu is a Pali word for a monk, right? Now, you might know that we have a lot of rules, right, laid down by the Buddha that we have to follow, right? It is part of our decorum. It is part of our practice. It is a part of our meditation as well, right? So, in following all of these rules, right, there are times, it wouldn't be normal if there wasn't, there are times when there are transgressions, when we too sort of make mistakes, when we break some rules sometime, be a bit cheeky, break some rules, have a bit of fun. I'm just kidding. But, transgressions always happens, right? So then these transgressions, some of them, right, are quite serious, right? For example, a monk cannot take life, right? A monk cannot take life, right? That is one of the worst actions that can be done, and the severity of the action is so much so that if a monk does take life, specifically human life, right, the person is no longer a monk, right? He cannot be a monk ever again for the rest of his life, right? Now, what in this action, right? What in this action, now similarly, there are many rules, right? For example, there is a time of day that we can consume food, right? After midday, we do not consume food, right? Solid food. We are able to take fruit juices and all of that, but after midday we are not allowed to consume food. This is for the reason of having sort of clarity of mind, not being sort of not having a full stomach at night, so you can practice your meditation at night, right? Because it's all because of the meditation practice to sort of ease. And also when you live in jungles and forests and all of these places, people, it would be very difficult for us to cook. For example, I remember a fun fact or fun story. And I remember when I was living in, if you've been to Sri Lanka, it was a safari where people usually, it was the Yala Reserve. So where a lot of elephants are, right? It is desert climate. It's very, very hot, a lot of caves, a lot of stone, not a area with a lot of trees, lush trees and greenery. It was a very dry, arid area. So it would be quite difficult to sort of reach the monastery as well. So one fine day there was a tuk-tuk, right? I'm sure that all of you are familiar with those cute tuk-tuks in Asia, right? There was a tuk-tuk, and the driver had been snacking on some sort of pea flour balls of pea flour balls, so some sort of dough balls, really, some dough balls with a bit of dried fish in there, right in the middle, right? So made up out of pea flour. So it's like a thing that you can get off these small boutiques by the street side in Sri Lanka, right? We all love them. Right. So this guy, obviously he was snacking on some pea flour balls, and he had not finished them. They were in a very thin plastic bag, and he was just snacking on them. And when he reached the monastery, there were 3 or 4 of these balls remaining, right? So there was an elephant who had smelt this, right? Who had smelt this. He came out of the forest, right? Actually, he came out of somewhere. There's no forest. He came out of somewhere. He came out of the bushes, right? He smelt around the trishaw or the tuk-tuk, right? He found the flower balls. He took it. he was probably really upset that the driver hadn't eaten most of it, and he banged with his trunk on the tuk-tuk and completely flattened the tuk-tuk. Completely flattened the tuk-tuk, right? Now just imagine, right? Likewise, there are monkeys, there are deers, there are wild boar, there are bears, there are all sorts of these animals. Just imagine the monks are cooking a grand dinner at night in the forest. Right? It would not be quite feasible. It would be very, very damaging to the animals as well as to ourselves, right? So the Buddha has said, depend on the food of the lay people, the people's generosity. So the people offer the monks or the meditating monks food, and then we consume that food, go back to our dwellings, and we meditate, right? So likewise, we have these rules. So that was a bit of a transgressing story, but I think it was fun for you guys to listen to that, right? But like that, we have to keep to certain rules. Now, how does now it is said, when a monk transgresses these rules, it affects the monk's meditation, right? You can't be a rule breaker all the time and also meditate effectively, right? Both, you can't meditate effectively. Now, this is where the question is, how, right? Lay people eat at night, they can meditate. Why can't a monk eat at night and meditate? Yeah, you get the argument, right? It's quite a feasible argument, I think, right? So here, then we come into the discussion of Kamma as energy and how that energy can disrupt or support, right? So as a monk, that you have to keep to these certain rules, right? And when you transgress these rules, you know in your heart that you have transgressed. The guilt that is created through, right, you transgressing the rule is such that this energy is able to disrupt. Now the Buddha is asked on a certain occasion, at what time does the energy begin this disruption, right? At what time? Is it before? Is it when I thought about doing it? Is it whilst I'm doing it? Or is it when I've done it, completed and finished, right? This topic has different ways of thinking, but what the Buddha says is this: it is the moment the full energy of the action is created. Do you understand? Now, for example, let us say this phone is not mine. Example, it is truly mine. Example, it is not mine. So it is there on the table, right? Now that is a good phone. I'm eyeing it now. There is no one around, right? You're thinking about it. There's no one around. You take a look around, right? And when you see the time is right, you take it, put it into your pocket. Now you pretend as if nothing happened and you walk out of wherever you are, right? Now let us look at what time I've incurred the stealing Kamma, right? What time? Now I would put the question towards you, right? What time do you think? Now I looked at it, I looked around, so there was predetermination. I was planning it. I thought that was a good phone there, right? There was no obstacles to me stealing it. I took it, I put it into my pocket, I waited a little bit, and then I left and I went home, and now I'm on the phone and I'm enjoying it. Now the act of stealing is complete when you're at home and you've closed your door and you are confident that no one is following you, right? Now the act of stealing is complete. Now what time, I'm going to unmute your mics. So what time do you think, right, the Kamma is now generated, right? What do you think?
The initial thought.
David?
Your initial thought.
Initial thought. Okay, we have initial thought. Gil, you had something to say?
I think it's when you do the action, because up until that time you have the choice of whether to do it or not to do it.
Okay, wonderful. Any other thoughts?
I had the thought about the first thought.
Yes, Janet.
The first thought involves you in that the energy of stealing. Then you have a chance to rescind that and change the energy if you say to yourself, no, I'm not going to do this.
Okay. Okay.
You know, it's that balance between those two thoughts.
Okay. Okay. Who else has any comments? Mike, would you like to say something?
Yeah, if you take it that you're starting on a base of a calm mind, when you first get the energy, when you first get the impulse that comes through, there is an energy involved in that impulse. As that impulse grows, so does the energy. So that the energy gets greater, the more you get into the action, until you've actually stolen it. And at that point, there is the greatest energy, the greatest disturbance to the calm mind.
Okay. Anyone else who would like to?
I have a question.
Yes.
And you may come back to this point.
All right.
But
Janet, yes.
Where does motivation come in? Because what if you have an emergency and your child is choking and you have no phone and you see a phone?
Yes.
Is it better to let your child die or to take that phone?
Sure. No, letting your child die is not an option.
Yeah, I mean, it's also,
yes.
so that brings in the question of motivation, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Behind why we're doing it.
Yes, absolutely.
Is it greed or is it, you know?
Absolutely. We will come into that. And all right. So according to the teachings of the Buddha, right? Now karmic potential, right? There are different degrees of karmic potential. The fullest degree of karmic potential is when the energy that is created through an action, or the karma that is created through the action, is able to now influence the rebirth consciousness that we would experience on our deathbed, right? When now the action that we've performed is able to influence a rebirth consciousness that we would experience before we pass away from this life, right? To the fullest extent of it, the Kamma, or the Kamma that a bhikkhu entails, that Kamma arises at the moment, not when you think about it, but when you perform the action. When you perform the action. Because now, for example, let us take, right, you dream about, let's say we dream about murder, right? You dream about murder. I'm taking a dramatic example, I know, right? You dream about murder, right? Now you dream about murder. Would that mean that it is equivalent to you actually doing murder? No. Why? Because the true power of murder, or that karmic potential that could arise from an action such as murder, arises when you physically, verbally entangle yourself or put yourself into the position where you are now performing the action. That is when the karma is going to be so powerful that it is now able to disrupt. That is when you will be having nightmares. It is that karma that will allow you or make you have nightmares every night, where you will be afraid, you will be looking over your shoulder all the time, right? That energy is created by, of course, the volition must be there, and then the action to support it, right? Now, coming to Janet's question, right? right? Very pertinent, right? Now, Kamma, the Buddha says, Chetanaham bhikkhave kammam vadami, right? What does that mean, right? Chetana is volition. The motivation behind the action determines whether it is a theft or it is something else. It is the volition that determines what the karma is. Now, sometimes we bend over backwards for people, and sometimes people take it the wrong way, right? Sometimes you smile in the morning and give someone a good smile, right? And they give you a look back that makes you feel absolutely disgusting. Probably in London, not in Colchester. Like, why are you looking at me? I'm just kidding, right? But sometimes it does happen, right? Now you smile with all integrity and just to spread some love in the morning, right? But the person took it in a different manner, right? In a manner that you were not expecting the person to take it, right? I think we've all been victims of such an experience, right? Now, the karma is determined by the volition, right? The Buddha refers to that consciousness or that type of consciousness as, now, for example, let's talk about stealing because that was the example. Stealing in Pali is called Theyya, 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 right? And then following that is Chitta, Citta, Chitta, Theyya Chitta, right? Now, Theyya Chitta is basically what Theyya Chitta means is the consciousness of stealing, right? The consciousness of stealing, right? One must perform an action through the consciousness of stealing for the action to be, or the karmic result, or the karma produced to be something which is burdening in a way that it is a theft, right? If it is, now let us say, I take my best friend's phone, like Janet used, my son is dying, I need to call an ambulance or something. I don't even look at whose phone it is. I grab it, I take it, and I call whoever I should call. That is not stealing, right? There is also something called Visvasa, right? Now that is a long word, right? Right? Now, Visvasak. Now that means Gahaya, Gaha by A means taking. Visvasak means trust, taking with trust, right? Meaning now when you're grabbing someone's phone, and if it is a situation such as someone is choking, that is, I think, quite enough reason to grab someone's phone or even push someone aside, right? That is enough reason. Now that is done. You perform that action at that time with a certain amount of trust to think that a person would understand. That is not stealing, right? That is not stealing, right? But the moment you think, I'm going to steal this, I'm going to take it, I'm not going to return it, when that volition arises in the mind, that is when the karma for theft arises. That is when a bhikkhu, and when the action is done, that is when a bhikkhu does, or a monk does now break his morality. And then it burdens his meditation, right? Burdens his meditation. So because of that, now even I mentioned last week that a monk is before his ordination, as a part of his ordination process, he's asked, do you have debt, and all of these questions. Now, the moment, if the monk has debt, and him becoming a monk is like, for example, you're saying, I'm not going to pay it back, right? Because how are you going to pay it back as a monk who is meditating in the forest, right? It is as if you're saying, I'm going to ignore that debt that I have, and I'm going to be meditating in the forest. Now, that is also stealing. That is why the Buddha does not allow ordination if you have a debt, because that will burden one. That will burden one whilst one is in meditation. That will burden one. And because of that, one will not progress in the path, right? Now, in the path. Now, when it comes to Kamma, right? When it comes to Kamma, now we've briefly gone through a certain amount of examples. We've spoken about there being different types of Kamma. To put a name to these different types of Kamma and the potential that each one of them carries, there are 4 types of Kamma, divisible due to effect, when it gives result, right? When it gives result. Now, as you study Buddhism and meditation, and as you listen to different talks, sermons, lectures, right, you will hear the word Kamma, right? Kamma and Kamma Vipaka. Kamma and Kamma Vipaka, right? Now, Kamma and Kamma Vipaka, right? Kamma refers to the energy produced at the moment with volition the action is done. Kamma Vipaka, Vipaka means result, the result of Kamma. The Kamma result is going to be, the results that you experience, manifest, the results manifested by the karmic energy that you produce, right? Now, I remember, let me give you a good example now, a personal example of mine again. I remember when my dad died, when my father passed away, I was in Burma. I had to fly back to Sri Lanka. My mother, although my mother and father were by that time separated, right? My mother and father were best of friends, and my mother was really taking it badly. Not in a way that she was howling and screaming and crying, but you could see that she was sad, right? But usually now what we would do in terms of Sri Lankan culture is when a member of the family or a friend passes away, on the 7th day of passing, we would invite monks home, we would help the poor, we would give food to the poor, we would do some sort of merit, perform some sort of merit to share merit with the departed, because we believe that that is the only way that we could help, right, the departed. So I remember we did the 7-day, and then so we would do 7-day meritorious ceremonies. Then we would do 1 month after the day of death, we would do a meritorious ceremony, and then 6 months, and then 1 year, and then 3 years. That is usually the culture, right? But that is only culture. You are most welcome to, actually, it's very good if you can share in gratefulness any good that you do, even daily, with your departed, right? So I remember on the 3rd month, or the 3 months dana, or the offering that we did to 100 monks, right? We invited 100 monks to a monastery, and we offered them meals and whatever that they needed. So obviously, because it was 100 monks, there was a lot of planning to be done, right? How the monks, the logistics, how to invite the monks and get the monks to one place, and then how to serve the food. The logistics took about a month for us to sort of determine and decide how we are going to do it. Obviously, you know, all of you have planned parties and events and all of that, right? So it took a bit of time. So I remember, now I was not living with my mother, I was living in the monastery. My mother was in the city, in our home, and she was communicating with me every day regarding the logistics, what to buy, what food to make, who to hire to cook the food, all of these details, right? Now I remember seeing her on the day that we decided that we are going to be doing an offering for 100 monks. We thought, I saw her and I saw that her face was pale. You know, you could see that she was not her glowing natural mood. But I saw her. Now, after a month, I saw her again. Now, this was 3 months after the passing of my father. Now, after a month, she was glowing, right? She was, yeah, her face had cleared, her dark circles had gone away. You know, she was looking good, right? She was looking good. And for me, I thought, what? Why? You know, because the only thing that she had been doing was in her mind focusing on the merit making ceremony. She was focusing, thinking about for the past month or so, all she had been doing really was trying to do or make a perfect merit making ceremony for 100 monks to pass merits to her ex-husband plus, you know, her late husband, right? That wholesome, right, reflected to the outward appearance that she had, right? She was glowing, she was looking good, her dark circles had disappeared, her skin had cleared up, right? Now that you experience, even when a person meditates, that person has an ambience around them, a certain vibe that is welcoming, right? That is also created by Kamma, right? That is also created by Kamma. Kamma is energy, right? This energy that we create, sometimes this energy is only able to do certain changes, such as give us a good glow, right? In other ways, it can give us results such as changing our whole rebirth in the future. In other ways, it can affect us in ways that it will affect the people that we associate. Sometimes, you know, sometimes if you find the parents are absolute saints, the children are absolute monsters, right? And then you find the other way around. The parents are absolute travesty, but the children are absolute saints, right? Sometimes you find these people who are really good, but they have really bad friends, right? Really bad friends. Then you find people who are really bad, but they have really amazing good friends, right? Now, it is sometimes when we look from outside, it is quite confusing. How? How does this happen, right? But what the Buddha says is sometimes the intricacies of karma and how that karma has been created, it's so complex because of the journey that we've had through our lifetimes, through our life. The things that we've done, we've helped people, but there were some people that we did not want to help. Hence, there is this different, unique karma that is created. Because the experience of life that we've gone through, our experiences of life are so unique, in a way that the karmic result that we experience is also going to be so unique, right? Now, I remember when I was another story, right? I'm wondering whether I'm telling too much of stories now. No, you like it? Okay. Another story. Now, when I was in a forest monastery in Sri Lanka, right? When I was in forest monastery in Sri Lanka, now usually we would go for alms. We would go on alms rounds, right? So we would take the alms bowl, right? We would take the alms bowl and we would go into the village, right? Sometimes it would be like a 5 kilometer, 6 kilo, and we would enjoy it, right? We would enjoy it. But sometimes it's a little bit scary, because sometimes you get wild dogs on the road who sometimes sort of try to attack you. Right. There was this funny incident where one of my brother monks had gone to a certain road, and there were two wild dogs who were trying to bite him. Right. And obviously now, as a monk, you have to be restrained. You can't be shouting and running. Just thinking about it makes me laugh a bit. Right, you can't be taking a stick or something and trying to batter the dog down. No, you can't do that, right? Because you are in the village, and obviously the monastery that we were in or part of is a esteemed, a very sort of well-known monastery for its deep practice. So obviously you can't have a monk running through the road chased by a dog, right? So what he did was, now this is just a funny story, right? So what he did was, because the alms bowl would have like a cover to it, so he was using the alms bowl to sort of ward the dog away, right? And when he was relating this story to us, we were the laughter made our stomachs hurt. Just the whole sort of scenario of you sort of trying to ward the dog away with your arms bowl, right? So it is sometimes dangerous, but the Buddha does speak of the benefits of going on arms round. One thing is for the exercise of it. When you go on long walks, right? The second is the humility that it creates. Some of these monks are coming from very, very well-off, wealthy families, educated with PhDs, and all of these things, having done high-class jobs with very good salaries. And then living in a monastery in the middle of nowhere and taking an alms bowl and going around a village for one's food, right, is a very sort of is an experience that brings a lot of humility, brings about a humble nature where you get rid of that ego thinking that you are higher than other people, right? It sort of tells you or puts you in a place where you now associate with yourself with the present moment, right? So the second one is the humility that it creates. The restraint and practice. Now, for example, like this dog story that I told you, right? You have to have a lot of restraint and practice, meditative practice, to be let out of the monastery to go on alms round. So not all the monks were allowed to go on alms round. It was only the monks who were good practitioners, who were seen as people who were with restraint and who could be able to conduct themselves, who would be allowed to go outside for alms, or else they had to eat in the refectory and eat the meals that were cooked in the monastery. And obviously the meals that were cooked in the village were much more better than the meals in the monastery. So we did actually like going to the village, right? So that is a cheeky secret of the monks. Because in the monastery, in our kitchens, we would be cooking for 500 odd monks, so obviously the food that is cooked for 6 or 5 people in the house would taste much more better. But the beautiful thing about this whole thing is, now, although we run out of time today, we are going to catch up on Kamma, so don't worry about it, Let's just have a good chit chat. So the beautiful thing about this practice, when you're in a monastery when you're with these other monks and you're meditating and all of this, is the moment that you get something good, you think about who can I give it to, right? So sometimes, let's say, sometimes if you get a piece of a serving of food that you would rarely get, right? We would always consider, who can I give this to, right? And that is the beauty of actually being in the practice. It's you become so happy by serving and helping and making another person happy, right? So like that, I went on alms round. I went on alms round that particular day, and there was a monk who was sweeping the sort of the public path in the morning in the jungle on the mountain. one of the parts, and then I was like, Bhante, he had his arms bowl with him because after the sweeping he was going to go for the refectory to have his meal. So I said, Bhante, I have something special today, can I give it to you? He was a very nice monk, very kind, so I wanted to give something special that I had to him. So I think it was a piece of fish or a piece of chicken, which is a very, very rare find. Right? It's a very rare find. Right? So I wanted to give him a piece of, I think it was a piece of chicken, right? So I wanted to give him a piece of chicken. And he asked me, what do you want to give me? And I said, Bhante, I have a piece of chicken that I would like to give you, right? And he said, oh, I'm sorry, I can't eat chicken or any other meats because I have an allergic reaction. Now I remember him telling me that he had an allergic reaction to some other stuff the day before, and I said, Bhante, how many things are you allergic to? Right? You seem to be allergic to the whole buffet. Right? And he said, yes, I actually am. I can't eat a lot of things. Right? That is why I do not go to the village for alms. I can't eat a lot of things. And I said, and he went on to say, now he was a developed monk, right? He had been meditating for years, I think 20 years or so, right? He was a developed monk. Hence, he was also so kind and so sort of maternal and paternal, and he was such a nice monk. So he went on to say, now at the time I was a very young monk. I was one of those, sort of naughty young monks, right, in the monastery. So then he went on to say, this is because I have given generous offerings to people in my past, but I have not given what people really wanted. I've only given what I wanted, he said, right? Therefore, now our monastery had so much of food, right? We had so much of food because it was such a good monastery. All the monks were meditators. It was such an esteemed monastery that we had enough food brought in by the lay people, and we would go for alms, all of that. So we would have everything. It would always be a feast. Right? Of course, we do not indulge in that way. Indulgence is very much looked down upon. We only eat what we need, absolutely need for the day. So we do not indulge. But we had enough. So he was saying, because of that, I have the opportunity to live in a monastery where we are overflowing with food. But because I've not given what people actually require, I have been inflicted by this karma, he said, right? And that I thought, yeah, the Buddha has said that. It is very important to, when we give, to understand what people actually need, right? To what people actually need. Giving a box of cheese is good, but giving 5 kilos of cheese to a person is not a good idea. Right? Now, the Buddha speaks about having wisdom when you do these kammas, right? Now, sometimes there are certain offerings in Sri Lanka, right, where, because of the cultural implications, now I personally I cannot relate with this pattern of thinking, but there are some times when people would sort of offer thousands and thousands of fruits and vegetables to a certain pagoda or a stupa, right? So they offer a lot of fruits and vegetables, right? And then there was an uproar in Sri Lanka, because Sri Lanka is a poor country. It's a third world country, and you're wasting all of these fruits and vegetables, right? So the Buddha always spoke about wisdom, right? And that affects the way karma is, right? Or what kind of karma that you generate, right? But the most important fact in karma is the volition that we have in sort of thing, or the mind that we have in sort of thinking or doing what we are going to be doing, right? Now, there are types of karma, right? There are types of karma, right? Depending upon the results that it could have, right? Now, the first one is what we call immediately effective karma. In Pali, we call this Ditta Dhamma Vedaniya. Let me put some Ditta Dhamma Vedaniya Kamma. Right? Ditta Dhamma Vedaniya Kamma. Right? Now this is in English, it is translated as immediately effective karma, right? Now, this type of karma is, right, the effect of this energy is you will experience the results of your actions in this very life. In this very life, right? Now, for example, let us take, or if it fails to give results in this life, it becomes powerless, or what we call ahosi karma. Ahosi means ineffective. Right? Ineffective, right? If it does not give result in this birth, this type of karma becomes ineffective, meaning it will not give rise in any other births to follow, right? Example, right? For example, let's say if we take care of our partners, right? If we are faithful, if we take care of our partners, if we give them love, if we have understanding, if you have the emotional capacity and energy to be understanding, to have patience, you will probably have a good marriage, a good understanding, a good friendship with your partner, right? That is somewhat like Ditta Dhamma Vedaniya, or what we call as immediately effective karma, right? You will read the results of it, right, in this very birth. If you smile back or smile or treat people with respect, if you are a lovely friend to your friends will also be there for you, will feel loved, right? That is also something like this karma, where you experience, if you are a person who is generous and ready to help when help is necessary, you will have a lot of people around you ready to support you, right, in whatever good that you would want to do. That is a part of this karma, right, where you do something good, and because of your actions you experience the results of these actions in this very birth. Now if you are a meditator, now something that we have really noticed as being monks is because monks are, they spend a lot of time in meditation, we do not have the common stresses that one would have with sort of having to maintain and to be with family and all of that. So in a way we do lead a blissful, serene life, but of course we also do have our internal drama and all of that, like everyone else, right? But compared to many of the obstacles that you guys would be facing in terms of keeping relationships going, etc., we would have a certain, higher amount of bliss, I would say, right? So lesser challenges in a way, right? So we see that because with all these monks who meditate, right, sometimes these monks are 50, 60 years old, but they look 30, they look very much younger than their actual age. And sometimes it's stunning, right, how young they look, right? You look at a photo and they've not aged almost, right? That is also part of Ditta Dhamma Vedaniya Kamma, right? Where because of that good energy that you develop, right, you experience physical and of course mental as well, right? These effects or good effects of the life that you're leading, right? So that is what the Buddha has referred to um, as immediately effective karma, right? But then also we sometimes have, right? I think there are a lot of videos on YouTube where you see that there is instant result, right? Where a person sort of does something bad to another person, and you see videos of instant sort of result where he trips and falls, or something happens, right? That is also ditta dhamma vedaniya karma, right? Or karmas or karmic action which gives immediate result, right? Now, the second one is, we say upapajja vedaniya karma. Okay, I'm going to use a hyphen. Upapajja. Upapajja vedaniya karma is subsequently effective karma. Subsequently effective karma. Now, this type of karma, right, will ripen in a subsequent life. If not, so this will arise in the second rebirth, meaning not this birth, but in the next, right? Not in this birth, but in the next, right? But if it does not give result in the next birth, it will become ineffective, right? It will lose its power, right? Then we have now something, a type of example for this is, for example, when if you have trained your mind up until the stage of, let's say, non-returner, right? The next birth you will surely attain arahanthood or enlightenment, right? Now, I'm not sure whether maybe you are not versed in the types of enlightenment. So there are 4 types of enlightenment, or 4 stages of enlightenment, right? So when you reach the third stage, you will surely not be reborn back here in this plane of existence, but you will surely attain enlightenment in the next, right? So what that would mean is a karma that will give result in the next birth, right? For sure, right? Now, this is that sort of a karma, right? Also, right, sometimes let us say that you have developed certain karmas that will affect your next birth, right? So because of that specific karma that you have done now, it's a powerful karma, right? Your next birth, you're going to be wealthy, or you might be poor, or you might have, whatever, Now that result will be given in the next birth, but if it doesn't, it will not have an effect any longer in your life, right? The third is indefinitely effective, right? Indefinitely effective karma, or this is in Pali called aparapara. Aparapara. Right? This type of karma will give result from the next birth all the way until you attain enlightenment, right? So it does not become invalid, or it doesn't lose its power after one. It will continue on up until you attain enlightenment. It will affect your life. So this can be something good, this can be something bad. This is the reason that the Buddha has said, do not sort of develop bad karma, because sometimes when these bad karmas become hindrances to one's life, it keeps on affecting one's lives in the future. And then we have the fourth one is ineffective karma, that is ahosi. I've written this ahosi karma. This is the karma that becomes ineffective, right? Right? So these type of karmas, right, that it does not get the opportunity, if it does not get the right opportunity to arise, these karmas become ineffective. It loses its power, right? It loses its power. So also when a person, now for example, now the third type of karma that we spoke about, if the person does not attains enlightenment, then all the karmas to follow will become ahosi, right? Will become ahosi, right? Meaning that it will not give result. It will not give result. So these are the four classifications according to result of karma. There are other classifications as well. There are other classifications as well, right? But we are going to stop with the classifications for today and just take it on another day, right? So now I would just, before we sort of, before we go on and wrap up the session, I would like to just talk about a bit of meditation and the effect karma has on the meditation, right? Now, we have all sat down for meditation, right? We have all sat down for meditation, at least for a minute or so, or 5 minutes, we have sat down for meditation. When we sit down for meditation, we experience the results of our minds, right? We observe the state of our minds in our meditation sometimes. Sometimes we notice that the mind is somewhat restless. Sometimes we notice that the mind is quite sort of serene, calm, and blissful, right? This confidence that you have in meditation, now if someone is to say, oh, let's meditate for 4 to 5 minutes, right? Someone is to say, let's do a sitting for 4 to 5 minutes. Sometimes you think, oh, 4 to 5 minutes. Maybe we can start with 20 today and do 4 to 5 minutes tomorrow, maybe. Right? You know, you see that lack of confidence sometimes, right? Because obviously you've gone through pain and you can't even imagine sitting for 4 to 5 minutes, because even 15 minutes have been quite painful for you sometimes, right? Now, this confidence is greatly affected by the confidence created by Kamma, right? The Buddha says that meditative Kamma is very, 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 very strong, right? The power of meditative Kamma, the Buddha says, is the strongest type of karmic energy that you can produce within oneself, right? The Buddha says it is much, much, much more power, the power of a minute of metta, a minute of loving kindness, doing a minute of loving kindness, Buddha says, is karmically so strong, stronger than feeding 10,000 people with food, he says. He says that karma is so special and so much more stronger because this metta allows for you to be compassionate in this life and many lives to follow. A loving one to become confident upon the practice of loving kindness, right? We will go deeper into that fact later on another day with regard taking the sutta itself where the Buddha has said that, right? We will go into it on another day. But this meditative karma is very strong, right? Now, this karma that we produce, this energy that we produce, sometimes has the ability to break, subdue, and to cripple bad karma, bad karmic results, right? How does this do that? How does it happen? Now, karma, right, can be divided or can be understood in two ways, right? Mundane karma, and supramundane karma. Mundane karma, now this is very important to all of you meditators, right? Mundane karma and supramundane karma, right? Mundane karma is, let us say, You help a person, you take care of one's parents. Even actually, now for all of you parents out there, right? Now you have done a lot for your children, right? You sometimes, when you cook and you take care of your partner, you have done a lot for your partner as well, right? Now, these are all comers. These are all comers. So you might sometimes feel, okay, it is my duty, my responsibility. But I personally, I do not agree with that, right? That it is your duty or your responsibility. It is your choice, right? When you get up in the morning and if you choose to smile, it is your choice. If you choose to be moody, it is your choice, right? If one fine day you get your husband to sort of cook, it is your choice. If you decide not to cook, that is also your choice. This is nothing to do with responsibilities or duties, right? That is what my personal feel is, right? Now, in having a choice, and actually the Buddha also, I would say that the Buddha also says that this is your choice. Yes, there are certain things that as one fraction of the partnership that you should be doing, but these are all things that you should be taking responsibility for, because these are decisions and choices that we may make each and every day. And because of these decisions and choices that we make each and every day, our relationships flourish or sort of do not flourish, right? These are all dependent upon the relationship, the decisions that we make in our life, right? Each and every day. So when you are taking care of your kids, right? When you are cooking for your husband or when you're cooking for your wife, right? Doing something for your parents, these are instances that can be karmically profitable to you. We are not doing it for the karmic profit, of course, but we are aware that this is a good action and this is an action that brings good result. And what it now does is, now every day you cook and clean, every day you cook and clean. Why can't that action of cooking and cleaning that you do each and every day be something that brings you something good in your life, in this life or the next? Why not make use of it? And you can make use of it with right, what we say. Now this word is also very important, children. Right? I have got calling your children. How cheeky am I? Yonso mansikara, manasikara, right? Right. Yonso. Now please write that word down. That is a very important word, right? Yonso mansikara is right right attention. Right attention. Now, when one has right attention, right, that is when whatever is thrown at you, you will be able to cognize, to take it in a way that it does not hinder or harm you. But if there is something to learn, if there is something to learn, you learn from it, right? If there is something to change about yourself, you do that with understanding. This is all with wisdom, but you do not find yourself going through a guilt trip. Remember that the Buddha has never used the word guilt anywhere in the practice. The Buddha does not say be guilt. No, he says we are human. He says that all humans are conditioned by 6 roots: greed, hatred, delusion, non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. 6 roots. Again, greed, hatred, delusion, non-greed, non-hatred, non-delusion. 3 roots that are good, bad, 3 roots that are good. And the Buddha says, this is the foundation of human existence. If we are aware that this is the foundation of human existence, we should understand that we will make mistakes. We will do things that harm ourselves and sometimes harm other people. But when it does happen, what should one do? One should learn from the action, right? One should use the Dhamma to know that what one has done is not right, that you could do it in a different way, where now one does not wish to hurt oneself, nor the person hurts another. He does not speak about guilt. In Kamma, guilt is like a Kamma multiplier. Please remember that, right? So the next time that you reminisce about something wrong that you've done, please don't be guilty, right? Because it is like a Kamma multiplier. Instead, use wisdom. Understand that that was something that you did in the past, but now you know better, that it is something that was done due to the ignorance that was existent within you, but now you are a little bit more wiser than that, and that you are a different person altogether, right? A different person altogether. Do not condition yourself by the mistakes that you have done in the past. Example, look at all the murderers like Angulimala, who the Buddha made enlightened, right? Angulimala was a murderer who killed 999 men. He was a psychopath, right? He was a man who murdered his victims, right, in a very gruesome manner, cut off their fingers and tied it onto a necklace that he wore around his neck. So he had 999 finger. He had a 999 finger necklace around his neck. He was such a crazy person, right? But he enlightened. Now in Buddhism, when a expecting mother is nearing the day of delivery, right, we chant the Angulimala Sutta to ensure that the delivery is sort of something to give blessing to the mother in a way that she is able to deliver the child without any complications, right? Angulimala was a murderer, a psychopathic murderer who did not kill one person, two people. He killed 999 people. Then you have all the prostitutes that the Buddha enlightened. Now these people, there were thieves, there were prostitutes, murderers, right? A variety of criminals, right, who the Buddha enlightened. The Buddha did not speak about guilt. The Buddha said, now you are a monk. You have taken up the precepts. You have let go of your previous life. Stop thinking about your past and think about the present moment, about the goodness that you have in the heart. This is why Kamma is so important. If there was no Kamma, we would be doing whatever the hell we wanted, right? Because there would be no consequence. But we know in our lives, right? In our lives, we know that everything that we do has a consequence. It is almost understanding that fact is almost where the threshold of childhood and adulthood is. Understanding the threshold is when you understand that there is consequence to all your actions, right? And Kamma is like that, right? These consequences might not be consequences that affects the whole world, but it affects the people that live with us, who love us, who give us the time of day. And that is why Kamma is such an important practice. The Buddha says, do not do something to another that you would not like to experience yourself. For me, when I was 14 years old, that verse changed my life, right? Do not do something onto another because you're confused, right? What should I do? What should I not do? Simple. Do not do what you do not like being done to you. Right? If you do not like being talked rudely to, do not talk rude to other people. If you do not like being given dirty looks, do not give dirty looks to other people. If you like to have your house secure, do not make other people's lives insecure, right? If you like to be loved, if you like to receive a phone call or a text message from a person, a friend, with love, care, send such messages to other people and you will receive them back, right? It is just one time that absolutely changed my life, right? And made it so much more peaceful, so much more, and enabled me to have so much more better friends in my life, right? So this Kamma is such an important part of doctrine, because it enables us to understand the fact that all of what we do has consequence, and doing good can actually bring about good results for you, enabling you to have a good life, a peaceful life, surrounded by people who actually love and respect you. So we are going back to the mundane and supramundane, right? When one does a mundane karma, like I have now explained in great detail, so much so that we have transgressed from the topic, right? When one does mundane karmas, right? Let's say these mundane karmas are, let's say you've done mundane bad karmas, right? Like talking behind a person's back, gossiping about another person, something like that, that is a mundane akusala or an unwholesome karma, right? How can you get rid of this karma? Or how can you overpower this karma? Now you have come to your senses, years later you have come to your senses, and you want to sort of be better and to develop good karmas now. How? Mundane karmas, if it is here, right? Developing supramundane karma means this supramundane karma is much more higher. So what it does is it suppresses the effects of the mundane karma, because this karma is much powerful than the mundane karma. How can one develop supramundane karma? Then you would be thinking, I hope, right? Supramundane is when one surpasses the thought patterns of the world, right? One surpasses the thought patterns of the world. These thought patterns are the three characteristics. What are the three characteristics? Anicca, dukkha, anatta. I'm going to write that down. Anicca, dukkha, and impermanence, suffering, and non-self, right? Anicca is impermanence, dukkha is suffering, and anatta is non-self, right? I think you do know. Now, when we say suffering, please do not misunderstand. This does not mean that life is suffering. What it means is life has potential for suffering. Potential, right? It does not mean that life is at every moment suffering, right? It means that there is potential for suffering, and that potential is somewhat something that you cannot avoid because of sometimes old age, illness, death of a loved one, or having to leave this world. Now, because of nature such as this that you cannot avoid, the Buddha says there's always potential for suffering in this world. But life is also pretty good sometimes, right? Life is something very much enjoyable as well, right? But it has potential for suffering, the Buddha says. Now, anicca, dukkha, anatta. Impermanence, suffering, and non-self. When one performs an action, knowing that there is impermanence, suffering, and non-self, right? Now let us say impermanence. Now when you meditate, When you meditate, if you have contemplated on impermanence in any way, that is something that does not belong in this world, right? Because it takes a great amount of wisdom, right, to realize that phenomena that arises passes away. When the Buddha, at the time of the Buddha, the doctrine prevalent in that time, there were three characteristics, but the complete opposite, right? I will write the complete. That was Nicha, Sukha, Atma. Right? Nicha, Sukha, Atma. Now that is not Buddhism, right? That was a doctrine that was prevalent during the time the Buddha became enlightened. People thought that everything lasted, right? That everything lasted, that there was absolute bliss, and it was towards this bliss that we were working, right? People wanted to sort of pass away, be born together with the gods and live with the gods happily ever after, right? Atma, people did not know anything about non-self, right? People did not know, and I am not surprised, because it takes a great human such as the Buddha to sort of realize this and say, look here, there is non-self here. When we sort of dwell deep into the topics regarding consciousness, you will realize how supramundane the Buddha's pattern of thinking was, the way he divides consciousness, the way he sort of expounds on how ego attaches itself to self, right? How ego attaches and attracts itself to self, the different norms by way, the ways, the tools, the techniques the mind uses to sort of delude the mind. It is unbelievable. The Buddha's wisdom, the different ways that he understands the mind 2,600 years ago. And the fact that I love about this, because I was not a born Buddhist, I was a born Catholic, right? So what I love about this fact is I can close my eyes, I can go into a deep state of mindfulness meditation, and I can actually see that that is true when I look at my own mind, and so can you. It is a practical thing that you can see for yourself. So I do not have to live just having faith that it might be something which is there. It is very much something that is visible to one who goes into that level of consciousness, where one is able to go develop oneself into that stream of meditation, right? That is what I love about all of this, right? I can see it for myself, and so can you, right? So can you, right? So now that is what we have about Kamma for today, right? For today, we will be touching on it, especially now this part that I have ended with supramundane Kamma. We'll be touching on it. We are not going to end it. We are going to touch on it, and we are going to dwell deeper and deeper into it. But I guess we'll take it slow, and we'll take it slow and allow ourselves to sort of be seasoned and for all of this information to sort of sink in, right? So on Saturday, right now, tomorrow is the Buddha's birthday, actually, right? So tomorrow, so the Buddha is a Gemini. The Buddha is a Gemini, and his birthday is tomorrow. And actually, according to the moon calendar, today is my birthday as well, because I was born the day before the Buddha, right? So today is my birthday according to the moon calendar, but we are not going to talk about that. So we are going to, of course, we have our normal classes tomorrow, but on Saturday, we are going to have as a way of celebrating and sort of doing something a bit more practice for the Buddha's birthday. We have a number of talks. We have a consultant psychologist who is going to talk about his experiences studying the doctrine, right? And specifically regarding the Metta Sutta, the Sutra on Loving Kindness. So I thought I invited him thinking that you guys would actually find his perspective quite, something interesting to listen to, because he is a British person. He's been brought up in this culture, and then he married a Sri Lankan lady, and then sort of dwelled deeper into the Buddhist practice. And I thought that his perspective on things and his study of the Dhamma would be quite an interesting perspective to all of you, right? So I will keep all of you informed. Please, if you have not subscribed, if you are not receiving emails from the Dhamma Center, please log on to dhammacenter.uk and subscribe. On the homepage, if you sort of scroll down, you will see the subscription tab and you can subscribe. Please make sure that you do, and you will receive. I will send out an email today. Also, we are doing a food drive for the Buddha's birthday. So we are collecting food stuff and all of that, dry rations, old jeans, old mobile phones, stuff like that for the homeless. It is so sad what is happening in the UK at the moment, with so many people, victims of domestic violence, being forced onto road. So we are trying to get some tents together, some old mobile phones, because apparently they are having difficulty contacting the homeless when they apply for council homes and all of these things. So the whole list is now available on our website, so you could drop off, or even if you want to make a cash donation, where then we will be able to buy the food stuff and all of that and go and donate it tomorrow. You can do that as well, but make sure in your cash donation you do mention that this is for the food drive, right, in the reference. So I wish you all the very best. Please do tell your friends, spread the word if you want to sort of be kept in the loop with regards to everything that is happening for the Dhamma Center. We have been receiving so much of very, very good feedback. Also, please try to come for the Saturday and Sunday meditations. It's amazing, right? It actually is. So please do try to come if you have time. Please do try to come and sort of tune in. It's amazing, I think. And a lot of people are getting a lot out of it. And I'm so happy that I'm a part of your happiness that you are experiencing in your homes. And I'm helping you guys to sort of have sort of a better mind frame and sort of dwell deeper into these topics that we are discussing. And it is a pleasure. So with all of that, I hope you the very best. Have an amazing day. The weather is beautiful. Go for a walk. And I will see you all very soon again. Take care and goodbye.
Thank you very much indeed. That's
Thank you.
excellent. Thank you.
Thank you, Bante.
Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
Bye-bye.